Chiefs have selected George Karlaftis. Big George! There we go!
I am so beyond excited that Josh Sinden getting a crack at left tackle.
It's really hard to win the AFC Championship.
Is it?
Welcome back to another edition of the KC Laboratory, brought to you by our partners in Possible Emprise Bank, members FDIC. They have been with us since we began. I am so excited to be partnered with them, as I am so very excited to be here on an organic, all-natural, raw matter day, joined by Hammy. How are we doing today, bud?
I'm great. It's great to be back here with you, and yeah. We're gearing up to draft. It's like a month away now. We're almost there.
Yeah, we've got this weird spot, right? And like, listen, I promise this isn't being like, oh, ha, Chiefs fan. Like, but the timeline for me is very odd this year because we have been in like the dead space for a long time that it feels like we've been talking draft for so much longer than normal in years past. Yeah. And so I don't want to say running out of stuff to talk about. I love it because I want to talk about the draft all the time, but it feels like we've just kind of been like lingering on the same subject for way longer than normal. And it's like, this is how most NFL fans live, but boy, it's different this year. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And when the season ends with a month to go, basically, it almost goes down, that'll happen to you. But yeah, it is. I mean, at least if you're going to have a year where you have to focus on the draft a lot, at least it's one where you got two first-round picks, a top 10 pick, a lot of intrigue around both those spots. So, at least that keeps it interesting.
Yeah, that's right. The Chiefs are doing right by us. They made us deal with being out of the conference championship game, so they went ahead and got 2 first-round picks. I like where your head is at. Always looking out for us as the fans. Hamilton, how was your weekend? Did you have a good weekend? Did you have a good time?
I did. It was good. It was I'm sure better than yours when you had to look at your Twitter notifications at one point. But yeah, it was nice and peaceful. Thank you.
Yeah, I did not have a nice and peaceful weekend. Let me tell you what. No, this time of year is always rough because like this is my oldest daughter's birthday this weekend, and we always, that's right, it is an ethical matter day. We always go and do something for it, and so it's in the middle of all of like preparing the draft guide. By the way, KCSN draft guide right around the corner, guys. We are finishing up all of the write-ups now. Kent is putting in overtime, getting that whole book put together. You can still pre-order right now. The link is going to be in the description of the show, but it's coming up. It is going to be here soon. But like, it's just a busy time. And so we're out of town. Yeah. We're going to theme parks. We're running around. We're hiking. We're doing all sorts of stuff. So I had a busy, fun, but like, I wouldn't say, it was like a calm weekend at all. And maybe more on that later. But all right. I mean, listen, I did say we were talking a lot about the draft right now. The draft is going on. That is the big thing. But before we get to that, if free agency did come and go, teams lost players, teams, went off and signed elsewhere. Teams made trades. Other teams out there maybe signed some big name free agents. So I think we're just going to kind of run down some AFC contenders, the majority of the AFC, I guess. And we're just going to figure out, is the conference better? Are these teams better than they were last year, or are they worse, right? I think that's a good place to start. So why don't we start at the top? The New England Patriots. Do you think they are better or worse than what they were? I mean, obviously the last time we saw them was playing in the Super Bowl. A whole little bit, kind of hard to be better. But do we think they're a better team right now?
Yeah, it's hard for me to sit here and say they got better. I think, they lost some key pieces. Whatever else you want to say about Diggs, he was important for them last year. I know they got Romeo Doubs as a replacement. We'll see how that works out for them. Vera Tucker, if Vera Tucker is able to stay healthy and work out, I think that's something that's an upgrade for him. But losing Caleb Von Chason with the year that he had for them last year, it's double-digit sack production when you get into the playoffs too. That's not easy to play. He had a big breakout year, and losing Tonga to Kansas City is significant for them as well. So, I think I don't know what we're going to see out of Kevin Byard, how much last year and his turnover production is sustainable. But yeah, it's hard for me to sit here and say they got better, especially when again, I'm not somebody who harped on the schedule with them a ton because you play who you play, and they dominated most of their games they played during the regular season. They weren't just skating by inferior competition. But knowing that schedule is about to get a lot tougher, I don't look at this roster and say it's significantly better. I'd say it's close. I think a little bit of a step back for them this year.
Yeah, they're in an odd spot because like I'm with you. I don't know if they necessarily got straight up better because I don't know if going from Diggs to Dobbs right now like is a big change. Now maybe you're getting out of the Diggs experiment before it goes south or before the age catches up. So like hit the move, but like I don't know if that makes you better right away. Vera Tucker's a good player, but like you can't rely on him to be healthy. You lost a little bit of speed and you brought in a good player in Draymond Jones, and I love that fit, but he's more of the same type of what you have with Barmore and Milton Williams on the interior. I'm just curious how it all comes together. So I think they're probably not the same. I think overall to me, they just kind of they made some good moves, I think. It's just I think they're about the same. I don't think they got significantly better. And given that I think they still had plenty of cap space, I was a little surprised that the most they accomplished was Romeo Doubs. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think they are going to trade for A.J. Brown?
The tea leaves seem to be going there. I think, Ricky Scoops is somebody that you have to pay attention to, that darn dog. When he speaks, yes, some things he says don't come to fruition, but everything he says is like, we find out at least it was being talked about. It does seem like it. And if they get AJ Brown, then we're at the point where I could say they're probably a better team than they were a year ago. Not, heads and shoulders better, but a better team than they were a year ago if they get AJ Brown. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, if they get AJ Brown, I think for me that bumps them up to better because it does push everybody down probably to a more logical spot. I like Dobbs as your clear cut wide receiver too, rather than being like he might be your wide receiver one. Like I think now you're talking about improvement, right? So I think he kind of changes a lot for them. So we'll see on that one. Let's move on. Denver Broncos. They made this pretty easy. Not a lot of changes happening with the Denver Broncos besides one. Trading for Jalen Waddle, and I guess it's hard to say they got worse. Like that's a pretty big change.
Yeah, I think that the only player of note that they lost was John Franklin Myers. The rest of that defense is together. I think the entire starting offense is back, and now you add Waddle to the mix, so they have as much continuity as you could possibly have from one year to the next, which is really hard to do in 2026 NFL. So. You'd have to think they're going to be better for that Waddle move. It was really the one glaring area of need when you looked at last season outside of, the big question there is just how is that ankle injury going to affect Bo going forward? How much of it is, what Sean Payton hinted at as like a recurring issue for him, which was the whole weird thing we don't have to get into right now. But is it going to affect him? And beyond, even if it doesn't affect him, is he going to continue to progress? Because there were moments last year where it felt like a little bit of a step back for him and they were winning anyway. If he takes a step forward in his development, this is a scary, scary team. If he doesn't, I don't know. There were a bunch of games last year that they were very fortunate to win. And I don't know if those go the same way this year. We saw kind of with the Chiefs, sometimes those things tend to balance out from one year to the next. When you win those games one year, they don't always go your way the next year. So if he doesn't take a big step forward, I could see this team, even though I do think they got better on paper, I could see this team taking a step back. It really is. It's all on Bo's shoulders right now because that roster is Super Bowl ready for him.
Yeah, they definitely got better. Like I think losing John Franklin Myers is unfortunate, but that defensive line I think has been pretty good. Like I think they can handle that loss, and then adding Jalen Waddle to the wide receiver room, I do think adds a nice little boost, right? So I think they got better on paper. The problem is, I don't know how much Waddle opens up for them. I don't know if having a fast wide receiver was exactly what I think was holding them back. I think getting a more talented guy is helpful. I just don't know if Waddle really opens up a ton for them to say significantly better, slam it shut right now, but the talent is higher. So better for the Broncos. I'm curious to see how it works because you're right. It is a lot more on Bo Nix now. Eventually teams are going to make him start to beat them. That defense at some point in time is going to fall on the wrong end of not even regression, but just variance. for defenses, and they won't be elite. They'll just be pretty good. And if that's the case, can Bo Nix do enough to win? We'll see. Better on paper, 100%. I just got to see how it all comes together.
And I will say too.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say too, with the Waddle move is interesting to me because when you look at the playoff win against the Bills, they kind of unlocked something they hadn't done nearly enough all year, which was for some reason they didn't want to use Marvin Mims all year. And not saying Marvin Mims is a world beater, but you saw in that playoff game the vertical stretch and what he did, and we saw it in 2024 as well when they were using Mims. Like Bo had a good connection with him downfield, and the downfield passing attack was inconsistent. I think it had something to do with the wide receivers, obviously some to do with Bo. But I think if you get Waddle, who's obviously a better player than Marvin Mims, and take advantage of his speed down the field, we saw that has been a strength of Bo's game in the past. And I'm wondering if they're going to unleash that a little bit more like we did see in that playoff game against the Bills, and it was successful.
So speaking of the Bills, Buffalo Bills, better or worse? They lose Joey Bosa, replace him with Bradley Chubb. They lost like every defensive tackle not named Ed Oliver or Deion Walker, and didn't really replace them. I mean, they had other guys on the roster, but didn't really replace them. Obviously the big one is right there, turning Curtis Samuel / Brandon Cook / Gabe Davis into DJ Moore. And then, they lost some veterans that played snaps, Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Taylor Rapp, Jordan Poyer, the safety room, DeMar Hamlin, lost all those guys. They bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to replace them. How do you feel about the Bills now?
Yeah, it's tough because I think a lot of it really depends on what version of CJ Gardner-Johnson are you getting, because we've seen him. And I don't think it's necessarily an age thing. He's 28, but like from team to team, some places he just doesn't mesh, and when he does, it's phenomenal. Like we saw him in Houston last year. It looked like he was about to be run out of the league. It didn't work, but then he goes to Chicago and it's a really nice addition to that defense over the second half of last year. So a lot of it hinges on that, and I just think with him, as we've seen, like you really just don't know what you're going to get sometimes. And Bradley Chubb, who, if he works out, if he stays healthy, if he's anywhere near the player he was, before the injuries really set in, that's a big addition for them. But that is a huge if, and I don't think it's something you can count on. And the other aspect of it, I think, with all the stuff we like to bring up with Sean McDermott that didn't go so well, the one thing that I don't think we talked about enough with him is what he got out of that defense over the last couple of years, because this wasn't a very talented group over these last few years, and he squeezed the absolute most out of them. You go back to that game plan against the Jaguars where he put Trevor Lawrence into a blender. He was a phenomenal defensive play caller for them. So I think losing him is a significant deal too. I think we're going to see a lot of regression from this defense unless you really see Bradley Chubb have a renaissance, and CJ Gardner-Johnson is the top end of CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah, and this is another one of those kind of tricky ones. I think, again, on paper, I guess they probably got better, almost certainly, right? Like adding DJ Moore, that's a big boost to the talent level at the wide receiver position. I don't think, you are that concerned that you lost to Taylor Rapp and replaced them by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Whoo! Like the talent level there, you probably get a little bit better on paper, but you're right. How does he mesh? Because we've seen him be really good on really good defenses. We've seen him be bad on really good defenses, and we've seen him be pretty good on bad. It's just, he's all over the place. It all depends on kind of how he works. He's now going to a defense that's going to be learning an entirely new scheme with like that new kind of like 3-4 hybrid system coming in there. I don't know. Again, they're similar to the Broncos, but it's a bigger scale, right? It's like, yeah, I think on paper they're probably a little bit better, but seeing how all these pieces fit together gets a little bit up and down. I think it was big for them to keep their center, McGovern, and only have to turn over the left guard. And so that's a pretty big deal for them in free agency to be able to keep one of those guys. And so you don't expect like a huge regression on the offensive line, although I do think they're having to replace their offensive line coach. So that's another area where you could see some it maybe doesn't show up when you look at the depth chart, but they are going through it, losing a guy that helped get them to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So on paper, again, maybe a small step forward. We'll see how it pans out once they play them together. On to your point, though, too, about also with Brandon Beane, you lose Milano, you lose Tre'Davious White. Poyer, I know, had been gone, but comes back. But also Taylor Rapp had been there for a few years. Like, you lost a lot of guys that were kind of like the brains or the guys like just keeping that defense organized and running. And I know they still have some players they like, don't get me wrong. But I just think like the fact that you lost all those guys in one offseason might come back like, hey, maybe this defense needs a little bit more of a leader. Maybe this defense needs someone to step up and keep everybody on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, and I don't see the elite level talent on that defense right now outside of Ed Oliver, really, when he's healthy. There's no, there's no dudes on it. Again, if CJ Gardner-Johnson is the best version, then he's one of those, but we got to see it. And yeah, I think the offense will be better for sure, but is it enough to make up for what I think could be a significant drop off from that defense?
Yeah. All right. So let's jump over to the Houston Texans. What do we think about the Houston Texans? Did they get better? Did they get worse? They're trying to rework that offensive line for like the 8th year in a row. They add another running back. They kind of figure out like Reed Blankenship steps in as a safety. Like, where do you think they landed at the end of at the end of the offseason?
I think they sneakily, it's not a team that got a lot of buzz throughout free agency because they didn't make the big moves, but I do think they got significantly better because you get two real pros in there on that offensive line in Wyatt Teller and Braden Smith. And I know Wyatt Teller hasn't quite had some of the years he's had in the past. But still, man, I think this could be rejuvenating for him too, to go to a place where you could actually win something for once. I think they got significantly better up front where they needed to. David Montgomery is going to make them better overall in the run game. I'm not as excited about it as some people, but it will make them better. And then that defense, all 11 starters from their playoff games are back defensively. And you add Reed Blankenship. The depth on that defense now, especially when you look at the depth in the secondary, is out of control. And also not only adding those offensive line, but Trent Brown now moves from a guy you had to start every week to your swing tackle. I think they have a lot of depth on that offensive line. And guys, if they do have some injuries that they can plug in and actually feel good about, I think this team got better top to bottom. It's all kind of like we said with Bo Nix. It's going to hinge on CJ Stroud. Is he going to grow from those two abhorrent playoff games? I mean, you can't play worse. It really was. This was not just a good defense. This was a historically great defense last year, and they squandered that opportunity. It's great that they get to run it back with all 11, but if CJ Stroud is going to melt down in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. So it really hinges a lot on him. But I will say I really like the shape that this roster is in, and they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender to me.
Yeah, I like that they're trying to fix the offensive line again. They're not just trying to let it like fight through and see if it's working or not. They said, okay, this wasn't working. It was too inconsistent. Let's go out and we'll get a Wyatt Teller. We'll get a Braden Smith. And while those guys are both like beyond their primes, neither guy are at the pinnacle of their health right now or what they once were. You said it, like they're kind of professionals. They understand how this works. They understand what to do. And you hope that they can bring the level of everybody else up to that. So like, I like that addition on the offensive side. I think going from a non-healthy Joe Mixon to a healthy David Montgomery is an improvement, right? Like I think that does also make you better. So I like offensively what they are doing to set up the Nico Collins, CJ Stroud. Tank Dell maybe can return, but what they saw out of the Jaden Higgins flashes and Dalton Schultz, like I like what they're setting up offensively. Defensively, they didn't lose a lot, but they did lose a good bit of depth along the defensive line. And I think that is what stuck out to me. Like I'm looking through a depth chart here, like, okay, a Dylan Horton, Solomon Byrd, and Dominique Robinson are taking your edge snaps when Hunter or Will Anderson are taking a breather. And I get it. Those two guys don't have to take a ton of time off. And I get it. I'm complaining about the backups to two guys that are probably the best edge tandem in the NFL. But like when you lose a Danico Autry, Mario Edwards, and Derek Barnett, like that's a lot of snaps. Yeah, that's snaps that you lost of guys that were effective for you in a rotation, right? It was nice they got to bring back Sheldon Rankins. I think if they would have also lost him when he was testing for agency, then it would have been a little bit more worrisome. But it's just, I do think they lost some depth along that defensive line. And for a team that plays the way they do, that might end up being a bigger deal come playoff time. And now you don't have that historic defense again. Now you just have a really good one that can be got. And now, hey, CJ, you got to do this. You can't keep fiddling around in the playoffs. You kind of got to get it done now. And now there's even more pressure on your shoulders. So it's almost like they're taking a gamble that they fix the offense and that CJ Stroud will be better. And I understand taking the gamble, but it doesn't feel like they're trying to insulate him while also acknowledging that he's going to have to take on more of the burden as they go forward.
Yeah, and we'll see too. They, Derek Barnett's still out there. They have their first round pick and 2 second-round picks. So, there's still ample opportunity. Yeah,
I just know people liked him.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's. I mean, I guess they don't really have a choice but to go in and just trust that CJ Stroud can get it done because I think the rest of this roster is really in place for it. It's just he's got to show up and do it.
Yeah, no, and listen, we got to show up and we got to do the rest of the show right after this quick break. Oh yeah, we caught Tuck full asleep. That was perfect.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back to the KC Laboratory. I am joined by Matt Hamilton here on this organic, ethical Matter Day, and we are running through the AFC. Right now, we have kind of done all of, I would say, the teams that were like legitimate, not obviously besides the Chiefs, who are the clear favorites, Super Bowl contenders. Now we're going to the teams that I think are still contending. It's just I think there's a little bit of a line break here between what we just did and where we're going, and that's going to make this next team very mad. Rightfully so. You got to show it to me more than 1 year in a row. The Jacksonville Jaguars, because I can't say Jaguars without being yelled at. What do we think about Jacksonville's offseason moves?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, they didn't do a whole lot, so except for let people walk. So it's hard to say that they got better. And, with what they gave up in the Travis Hunter haul last year, it's kind of limited what they're going to be able to do in this draft too. So it's hard for me to say they got better. I'm interested to see how they fill some of these holes, losing a Devin Lloyd, who, again, I understand why they didn't want to pay him. But still, somebody you're going to have to replace. Interested to see how Travis Hunter comes back, because they got rolling after they lost Travis Hunter, which was part of the shame of it too, was we didn't really get to see the impact he was going to have when this team actually figured some things out. So, and then the Brian Thomas Jr. situation, they're insisting he's going to stay. I tend to believe that because I don't think they're going to get really fully what he's worth. And it's worth, taking this year and seeing if you can recapture something he was able to do a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's hard for me to say they got better with what they lost and not really bringing anything in.
Yeah, they didn't change a whole lot, right? They kind of kept the team that was rolling down the stretch, and they lost a couple depth pieces. Like, don't get me wrong, but they didn't lose anything significant. So I guess one way to look at it is if you take it what they were at their best, they're going to add Travis Hunter, the cornerback, back to that group because he wasn't there when they were playing their best. And so maybe you feel a little bit better about their defense then. I'm curious if he's going to play offense again at all. I think, I don't know. That's a weird situation for another time. I think they got to try him still. I think you can't just have him play corner, but you got to also find a position for him to make a significant impact. And I think that we didn't get that last year, right? So, Yeah, they pretty much stayed the same. I mean, I guess going from Achane, my bad, Travis Achane to Chris Rodriguez is definitely a step back, but their theory is that Bashal Tutin and LaQuint Allen are going to take steps forward in their second year, which I get. I get what they're banking on. They're banking on another year of these guys and Liam Cohen's system. They'll get better, but it doesn't feel like they added any talent to this team to help them get over the hump. And listen, this team, especially early in the year, had a little bit of that turnover luck, had a little bit of that magic going on for them. What happens if that runs out and you don't get any better, right? So it could be an interesting year for them.
Yeah, and you know, HN and Devin Lloyd were really valuable pieces for them last year. And I get it from a business perspective. They're at two positions that don't have a lot of positional value and guys that got paid a ton of money at those spots. So I get it from a team building perspective why they didn't want to keep them, but it's question marks having to fill those spots right now. I think Tutin showed some really good things last year. It's going to take a significant step forward to replace the production that HN put up for them.
All right, let's head back to the AFC West with the Los Angeles Chargers. Do we think the Chargers with Harbaugh at the helm, bringing in Mike McDaniel, who I guess by himself counts as probably getting a little bit better. Do we think that they got better this offseason, especially considering the coaching change?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess if you factor into this whole equation, assuming that they're getting their starting tackles back, I think that's the biggest thing, because
are they going to stay back? That's
another question. But if those guys are back and you have Mike McDaniel in the equation, if they actually play a full season, it's hard not to think this team's going to be better than what it was, because early in the year before they lost Slater and Alt, I mean, I know we didn't get a great sample size. This team looked really friggin' good with those guys out there. And obviously it was a complete disaster that they had to fight their way through without them. So just by virtue of that, they should be a better team this year. It's just, like you said, can you count on it? And what's Justin Herbert going to do in big games? Those are the questions. But when you look at this roster, top to bottom, you know, again, if we're factoring in those tackles as an offseason addition, which I do, because if we're evaluating them based on where they ended last year, they're a better team. They're a much better team if those two guys are healthy.
Yeah. I mean, those two guys obviously make a big impact. I think, you know, you think you get better on the interior offensive line, adding Biadasz and Cole Strange, I guess. I don't know about that one as much, but you expect to get better. I think Charlie Kolar is a really good addition at tight end to pair with Gadsden. So, like, I like some of the moves that they made offensively that makes sense, and you pair those guys with Mike McDaniel, I think you get probably a lot better performance offensively, even if the tackles get hurt again. I doubt, knock on wood, for them, because I don't want anyone to ever get hurt. I hope both the offensive tackles don't both get hurt again. So like even just one of those guys back, I do think makes them a better team. Defensively, I have a few more questions. Like losing Mentor, kind of a big deal, especially because like I look at this defensive like depth chart, and the front seven's solid, but in the back end, outside of Derwin James, nobody there scares me. Nobody there. I'm like, ooh, that's a really good player. So it's how much was Mentor getting more out of this defense than what the actual talent level of it is? And if they just go from everybody's overperforming by a lot to everybody's like right on par or even underperforming slightly, how much of a step back is that? So I guess maybe for all of the same positives I see offensively, I wonder if there might be the same like half step backs defensively, especially as they lose a couple guys on the defensive line and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. That theirs is more centered around the coordinators, I think, than even the players besides the tackle health, obviously.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's similar to how I feel about the Bills, you know, and you lose that, you know, you don't totally know what this defense is going to look like. And, you know, obviously Mentor did such an incredible job. He got himself a head coaching job out of it. It's not an easy guy to replace. So that's definitely going to be something interesting to keep an eye on.
All right, let's do it. Everybody's favorite team this time every single year to win the Super Bowl, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Where are these Baltimore Ravens who can't win in the playoffs but are consistently the next Super Bowl winner are they better or worse this year?
Yeah, I mean, again, the Trey Hendrickson edition should make this defense a lot better. We'll see what happens with Matabike with his
that's a
neck.
big one.
If he's able to come back, that's going to be huge. But if they get him back with Trey, this defense should be significant. And speaking of Jesse Minter, this defense should be significantly better than it was a year ago. But it's hard for me to say right now as a team that they're going to be significantly better because do they have the worst offensive line in the league right now? Question mark.
Oh boy, it's not good.
Yeah, getting John Simpson back is, somewhat helpful.
It's a
but,
move.
Yeah, it's a move. It's better than what they had, but losing Linderbaum is massive. Ronnie Stanley has not looked like the same player for a little bit now, and the rest of the line is a mess. So that really concerns me because it was a huge issue for them last year, and it got worse this year. And I don't know how Lamar is going to survive the whole season and how they're going to really maximize what they can do with him and Derrick Henry if this offensive line is this bad. And that's also why it was probably crucial for them to keep their draft picks and back out of the Max Crosby deal. So, again, I think the defense takes a big step forward. I'm very concerned about this offensive line, and if they don't fix it, it's hard for me to say they got better. We'll see. This is one I definitely have to wait and see what they do in the draft before I can fully judge it. But as it sits right now, it's hard for me to say that this team got better because that offensive line is going to hold them back.
Yeah, and so I think the Madubuike thing's huge too, because if he can come back healthy, that's a big addition to go with Trey Hendrickson. Like, yeah, you lose, I think you lost Van Noy, but Hendrickson's an improvement, especially on rush downs, passing downs, run downs. Okay, maybe not, but close, right? And then Madubuike coming back, very good player. And then I just talked about how Minter could cause like a small step back for those Chargers players. He could get I like him as this head coach here, and we'll see what he does with this defense. Maybe all of a sudden they're overperforming a little bit. So I defensively probably a step forward, even if the talent's only kind of spinning on the Hendrickson head and that's it. It's offensively, right? That the offensive line that was already a weakness loses some guys, right? And you try to replace that guard spot with Simpson, but that's not a huge improvement. You lose DeAndre Hopkins, who again, not a huge deal at wide receiver, but outside of Zay Flowers, who are they throwing to? Oh, by the way, you lost your tight end 2 and 3. That was really big part of what you kind of did because Mark Andrews ain't blocking and he's not getting any younger. He's not getting any more athletic to help Lamar Jackson out. Derrick Henry, I'm not saying it's this year, but eventually age catches up to everybody. And if you all of a sudden aren't getting good blocking, your offensive line can't get movement, and you don't have any tight ends to help, what does that look like? So offensively, I'm a little scared for what this team could look like. I don't know if they necessarily took a huge step back, a little step back with their talent, but I wonder if their performance on the field just doesn't take a pretty big step back at this point in time.
Yeah, that's where I am with them. And I think, it also, I know there are people, especially listening here, that have, mixed feelings about Lamar Jackson. But when you do look at the last couple of years, the offensive line hasn't been great. I know he got Derrick Henry. The offensive line hasn't been great. He has Zay Flowers. He was thrown to, I was looking at when he won that MVP 2 years ago, Odell Beckham was the second leading receiver on the team. They were playing Anthony Miller in meaningful football games, meaningful snaps. And he won an MVP. So just do want to say that, as taking a step back and kind of looking at this thing and how it's all unfolded, and it is amazing how much he's kind of made up for at points. But this is too much, I think, even for him if they don't fix this offensive line.
All right, we got 3 more teams that we're going to get through here. Let's do the Indianapolis Colts next, because I don't think this one takes very long. I think this one's pretty short and simple. But what do you think about the Colts offseason? Are they better on paper now, or are they worse?
Well, they're worse. I think, the Baltimore maneuver, this is not the first time, I guess maybe was this Baltimore's revenge for the Colts leaving? Was this finally it? Because I really think Trey Hendrickson, from what I've heard, was going to be a Colt until the Ravens pulled out of the Max Crosby deal. I think that really dealt them a significant blow because they were kind of planning on banking on that. It didn't happen. Their defense has taken a massive step back now. And you have Daniel Jones coming off an Achilles. We'll see what he's able to do. They did get Alec Pierce back, but and lost Braden Smith, as we talked about too. So this team, in my eyes, absolutely got worse.
Yeah, it felt like their plan was kind of like, hey, we're going to do the Chris Ballard special and double down with our guys that we've had. And it sounds cool in theory coming off of your best year, but look how that year finished. And look at the guys you doubled down. I think Alec Pierce is very good. Is Alec Pierce really, are you about to unlock some level of Alec Pierce that we haven't already seen, though, worth that much money? Daniel Jones had a really good half of a season. Are you really going to unlock something new from Daniel Jones now, coming off of these significant injuries that you didn't already see? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like they're paying two guys at the absolute for an absolute premium price at the best season they're ever going to have. And they just paid those guys and then didn't do anything else. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, I think, the thing that was going to tie it all together was Trey, and that didn't come through. So now they're left with what they're left with.
Daniel Jones would have been off a complete leg destruction, would have been a wild move. But yeah, I guess. All right, let's go Pittsburgh Steelers. We got two more left. We're going to the AFC North for these last two. Pittsburgh Steelers, better or worse team as of now. They bring in Michael Pittman Jr. to pair with DK Metcalf, so they do in fact at least have two wide receivers that are real people. And then besides that, like, I don't think they add a whole lot of other guys at this moment in time that are swinging too much one way or the other. Jamel Dean.
I think they did get significantly better defensively. Jamel Dean was a big addition for them. They also got Jaquan Brisker, who, if he can stay healthy, we know can make some things happen, as my cat crawls across the shop. Thanks, Tuco. And he's moving everything. This is great.
We see everything now. Let's go.
Yeah, there we go. All right. But yeah, I think they got significantly better defensively. I think also losing Terrell Austin is probably a plus. We talked about losing defensive coordinators hurting teams. I think this is one that's going to help them, because I honestly thought he did a horrendous job last year, and we'll see what Patrick Graham can do. Did some good things with the Raiders, so we'll see how that works out. They had Rico Dowdle to that backfield.
Yeah, I forgot that.
I think
saw that. That's
be helpful too. And Pittman, they desperately needed somebody to throw the ball to other than DK Metcalf last year, so Pittman should be helpful there. It's just, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be yet. We actually had Michael Pittman on the show today, and he said he has a relationship with Rodgers. They've worked out in off seasons before, but he has not spoken to him yet. He didn't want to bother him. Rodgers did not reach out to him. He is, made it seem like he's very much in the dark about what's going on there, as we all are. I was hoping to get maybe some indication one way or the other, but that did not happen. But if they do get Aaron back, this is a better version of this team than it was a year ago. I think, clearly, it's just, is Aaron going to be willing to hang in the pocket a little bit longer and not just try to get everything out of his hands as fast as possible? Because I think that's something that really helped him back a lot last year. Mm-hmm. And that's my big question for them if he does come back. But I think this defense is going to go from what was a pretty poor unit last year to one of the better defenses in the league.
Yeah, actually, looking it over, let's go with the big caveat. If Aaron Rodgers is back, I think they probably got pretty significantly better, right? And I don't think that Aaron Rodgers was like great or anything last year, but he's better than Mason Rudolph. And so, like, if he's their starting quarterback again this year with a more reliable another option in Michael Pittman Jr. in there, I actually really like the Rico Dowdle addition. I think he's a really good running back, especially for the kind of running scheme that they usually use. Now, I guess McCarthy I got to see what McCarthy's got cooking again now, but I think that's a good. I like what they've done offensively to get some more weapons around to make it a little bit easier for Rodgers if he is the quarterback. Then defensively, like you said, Jamel Dean across from Joey Porter Jr., that's a physical pair of outside corners. Jalen Ramsey's moving all around. Like, I like actually some of their moves. So this team could be on the up. The problem is they didn't get better along the offensive line. And that is where your issue with Rodgers comes in. Even if it's Rodgers or Mason Rudolph, this offensive line being pretty darn, this one's giving the Ravens a run for the money. And like this offensive line being that poor is a problem, right? So they're better. I think they're definitely 100% a better team. Are they better by enough to matter? That is, especially in these certain spots. That's what I don't know. And so, all right, let's round this out. Last one, the Cincinnati Bengals, also called the Fraud Goals in mini circles. Do we think they are a better or a worse team now than they were before?
I mean, the offense is pretty much what it was last year, so that's a positive for them. The defense can't be any worse than it was last year, so also a positive. I think, getting Brian Cook there, I thought Brian Cook had probably his best, in my eyes, his best year as a Chief last year. Jonathan Allen, Boye Mafe, and the potential that he has. It's hard to say that defense won't be better. Again, it can't be any worse than it was, but I think it will be better. It's still would have liked to see them add a big piece. I think these are all guys that are going to make them better. Would have liked to see them add a big piece there. We'll see what they're able to do in the draft. But if they can just stay healthy offensively for once and keep Burrow healthy, this is a team that can do some damage. I think, again, pending what they decide to do in the draft, also pending whatever happens with Shamar Stewart, if he's able to, if they're able to unlock that potential with him.
Or is he going back to Texas A&M again, or what's happening there?
Yeah, but better definitely. And I think it's the same. Is it better enough to matter? We'll see how things kind of shake out with this defense.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, losing Osai and Hendrickson, I think, is pretty rough. And I get it. You're trying to replace it with Jonathan Allen and Boye Mafe. It's like, I get how they're trying to go about replacing that a little bit. I just don't think that replaces what you lost from either. But again, either guy,
also, you got to consider that Hendrickson didn't play for them last year because
he didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's what allowed. But that's what allowed Osai
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what allowed Osai to show that, like, hey, there's a little bit more to his game than what we had thought. Right. Like they put him in the Hendrickson role, and it looked pretty good. Now, I'm not saying Boye Mafe can't go be in that role now. And like the last time, he was the guy that got to have a free reign to do kind of not whatever he wanted, but be the guy. Was his second year in the NFL, which was conveniently his best year as well. So maybe that's. I just see Osai and Mafe a little bit more similar, I think, in the grand scheme. And then so you're talking about losing Hendrickson. Just that defensive line now, I think, kind of lost the dude, and then another young guy, Miles Murphy's shown you nothing up to this point. So I don't know. I do think that offensively it's the same, which will be better. It's hard to be worse defensively. Brian Cook is an improvement over what they had in the secondary. So like I could see how they end up better, but I do think lose that defensive line, slight step back in the talent. A slight step back to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's our AFC. Did they get better section here? Realistically, not a ton of teams got way better. And the teams that did, we were kind of like your fringy teams, like the Steelers, assuming Rodgers is back. And like, did they get better enough for it to matter? Teams like that, the Houston Texans, they got better. Did they get better enough for CJ Stroud to be able to get them over the hump? It's like the teams that got a lot better still have questions around how they're built. So very, very interesting offseason, I think, for the AFC. I don't know if they did a great job of closing the gap in the overall talent to the NFC.
Yeah, I think it's still very much a wide open field in that AFC, and which is great news for Kansas City because again, when we were going through this exercise last week, like, is the roster fully ready to play week one? Whatever. As we're going through these teams, I think really the only teams from a full roster standpoint that I feel good about in the AFC right now are Denver and Houston. I think the others all have serious questions they still have to answer. So when you look at Kansas City and where they stand in relation to everybody else, they're kind of right there.
Perfect. That's what we all like.
And they
to
have
hear.
Patrick Mahomes, which the other teams
That's
don't.
right.
So
let them know.
Yeah. So
not playing
again,
flag football.
It's not. Yeah. But again, it's not. We're dipping a little bit into the Kansas Chiefs fans have to live in the world again where the other 31 fan bases live. I get that.
Yeah.
It's not like it was in years past, but if you're looking at how they stack up to these other teams, they're absolutely right there with the top
right there.
contenders in the AFC. Yeah.
It's all you need when you have it's all you need when you have Mahomes. Just get back out there. That's what we need. Get back in the game. Keep it close. We'll make it work. All right. We're gonna move on. We're going draft talk now. That's it. That's done. No more free agency. I'm tired of free agency. Okay, it's way too long. Okay, guys sign, they don't sign, whatever. We're moving on. We're gonna just first of all, shout out Lee. Thanks for the super chat. Just wanted to stop by and say hi. Well, appreciate it, Lee. I hope you have a fantastic week. Thanks for hopping in. All right, here it is. This is a new segment. This is called Explain It to Me Like I'm Five, and I'm going to let Hamilton take over from this point so we don't put him in any awkward positions moving forward.
Yeah, so this is a segment. We were talking this out, before the show, what we wanted to talk about today. And Maddie's going to pick out a draft prospect that's getting hyped that he doesn't quite understand, or to put it in simpler terms as he phrased it, time to be a hater. So, Maddie, I'll let you take it away. Which prospect is getting a ton of buzz right now that you just you don't quite understand it and you want to talk through it a little bit here?
So when I was pitching this, I had a different player in mind at the same position, but a different player in mind. But then as the day went on, it's gone too far. It's gotten out of hand. What's up with this Denzel Boston guy, this wide receiver out of Washington? I don't get it, right? Okay, so we're talking about here, we're like 6'4", 210 pounds. Good size. We love the size, right? But he lives in contested catches, and that's already a red flag when you look in the NFL. Like, the NFL already says, hold on, we're a little skeptical here. How many contested catch guys get drafted early? But that's fine. You can do other stuff. But then you dive into his numbers. Barely over 2 yards per route, over 2 yards versus zone and yards per route run. That's not great. The NFL doesn't love to see that. There's not a ton of yak. There's not a ton of separation. He didn't really start posting really good numbers until he was a junior. So he broke out a little bit later. He's coming out as a senior, not an old player, but he's coming out as a senior, which again, we're stacking up the, what's what of analytical yellow to red flags. So I'm already I'm not sure I understand where we're going with this. This is a lot of yellow and red flags for a player that we're talking about as a lock for round one. Some people have him as this wide receiver 1. Insane. But then for me, I asked people a month or two ago, what's the Denzel Boston game that's going to sell me on him? Tell me the game I need to go watch to fall in love, because everybody has that game. I get pointed towards Oregon. I go watch him versus Oregon. And I did a little, Twitter thread about it. I came away saying he's not fast enough to pressure them deep. All of his stuff where he gets wide open, not all, but a lot of it is protected releases where he's cutting underneath somebody releasing vertical, or they're running some kind of crossing concept where not necessarily a mesh, but he's running a crosser under another crosser. And so they're creating manufactured space to get him the ball on the move. And then finally, I watched him try to make some hard breaks, and he can't turn. He can't drop his hips and turn. And then yet I'm looking online and people that guy's really fluid for his size. What do we mean he's fluid for his size? He can't turn. So it's just I just don't understand why he's a round 1 lock. You want to like him on day 2? I get it.
Yes.
But a round 1 lock, I need someone to explain it to me like I am 5. What is going on here?
Yeah, and I like him as a day 2 pick. I do, because of that size. The ability to make those contested catches. I think there's some savvy to him too, where he's able to find those soft spots in the zone. He understands coverages and what you're trying to do and how to find space. But like you said, he's just not a fluid mover. He's not at all. He's very stiff in and out of his breaks, and most of the big plays that we saw from him were manufactured by short motions, stacked releases. Just, they did a great job of drawing things up to get him free running his space. And when he's running straight line, he can move a little bit for his size. Like we saw, I couldn't believe they had him back there on punt returns and he broke a couple of those running straight. But he's not making people miss at the NFL level. He's not breaking anybody off on routes. He's not going to create a ton of separation. He's going to live finding space in zone and going up and making contested catches. And that's, again, I think he'll be a productive player in this league. I think he'll, in the right spot, he'll be a good player in this league. But the traits aren't there for him to be talked about as the top receiver in this class, or even a high-end first-round pick, or to me, even necessarily a late first-round pick. Again, because the ceiling is capped. We kind of see what the ceiling is, right? Because athletically, he's not going to get any more fluid than he is right now. You kind of see where he is athletically, and there's only so far you can get by being big, being able to make contested catches, and having some of that savvy to you. Again, it's a good player. He'll be a fine, productive player for somebody. But when you're talking about Lemon, when you're talking about Carnell Tate, like those guys have traits that he does not have.
Yeah, and like, you know, I don't want to like sit here and like throw anybody under the bus that likes him, you know, that has maybe talked about it in national media. It's odd because like I've seen people talk about him, comparing him to Carnell Tate and like acting like he does stuff better than Carnell Tate. And like, I think Carnell Tate's not a perfect receiver, but what does Boston do that Carnell Tate can't? Like they're one and the same, just one's better. Evan Tate's just better at all the same stuff. And so it's just, he's been one that I really don't understand, like how the profile doesn't point super positively when you start looking deeper into like the yards versus zone versus man. He doesn't force many missed tackles. He's decent with yak, but you talked about it and I said it too. They're getting him a runway. And yeah, if you get him the ball on the move, he's got fantastic hands and he can catch and keep his speed perfect. Like he does not slow down at all to catch the ball. He can pluck it above, like outside of his frame and keep moving. So like, yeah, you can scheme him into some yards after the catch stuff, but he's not breaking tackles. He's not making guys miss. He's just a very mediocre, very average yards after catch player. He doesn't get he's a smart player. I think he knows how to run routes. He understands how to attack leverage. He understands that I should attack your blind spot and then step on your toes when I'm going to make a break. He's just not fluid enough to do it and take advantage. So it's just, I get a little lost on where I'm supposed to love him. And so I come back and you said you really like him on day 2. I'm a little bit more lukewarm on day 2, but not against it. I just come back. I don't think he's a better prospect than Jaden Higgins was of Iowa State last year. I thought Higgins moved more fluidly and everything else is very similar. So it's just, here's a guy of similar size. It's more fluid, but we comfortably took him on day 2 and some people didn't love him there. And now we're talking about a guy here in Boston that I have definitely seen people inch closer and closer towards that top tier of wide receivers. So it's just that one. This is me being a hater. I'm saying he can still a top 100 pick, still a very solid day 2 pick. I just, for the life of me, do not see this round 1 lock that it seems like a lot of people do right now.
Yeah, and the Higgins comp is a good one. The other one, like I'm thinking about, if you're looking at a big receiver that went on day 2, that was a way more fluid mover. What about Nico Collins? I know he didn't have quite the production that was, but like you look at him. You want to look at a big receiver that's fluid. Watch Nico Collins. You want to look at a big receiver that can make something happen after the catch. Watch Nico Collins and then watch Denzel Boston. And I think that's where you see that split. Because again, I think if we did it again, Nico Collins would probably be back end of the first round type of player. That's what it should look like. And Denzel, again, it's not to slam Denzel Boston. I think he makes the most of his abilities. I like him. You know, he's the guy I would want to have on my team because, again, as you said, I think you could tell watching his tape, he's very smart and really makes the most out of what he's able to do. But again, with those physical limitations, you want to draft based on ceiling and what a guy can turn into.
Yeah, and here's like, I think he's a slightly better player this, but my final comp that I kind of landed on this kind of like how he moves versus where I think he'll win in the NFL, because I don't know if he has the speed to be a vertical guy like at all. I've seen some people throw out Kenny Galladay, but I think Galladay had enough build-up speed that like he really threatened you deep. I just don't think that I don't think Boston has that juice, and I think him choosing not to run shows that. He kind of reminds me of Alan Lazard, and like I think he's better, but like the way he plays and moves, I just get a little bit of Lazard vibes from him. And like, that's like solid NFL player. And especially if he's better than him, you could carve out a nice role as a solid, reliable number 2 for somebody that just doesn't feel like this round 1 lock that people have. So it's just, anyway, that's what, we're going to do this segment. We're going to run it back, especially when Kid's here. I'm going to make him be mean to a player too. But yeah, it started with Denzel Boston. I'm going to holster the guy I initially had for another week too. Because I got another one. But yeah, that's my Boston. I just don't understand it situation.
Yeah, and I think it's all fair. I think that's and I think that's honestly a perfect comp. Like a better Alan Lazard, I think is a very good comp. I like that a lot.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I've seen some questions from Mike in the chat. So I'm just going to answer this one here. This is perfectly fine here. If I'm starting to warm up at all to Delane at pick number 9, just give it time. 31 is. I mean, like I don't hate Delane at pick 9. I'm shocked he ran as fast as he did. I did not see that on tape whatsoever. I didn't think he's a bad athlete. I just thought he was a fine athlete. So him testing like that certainly pushes him back into like, okay, now we can consider this as a top 10 pick at corner. I just don't think I want the Chiefs chasing after a guy that might become Trent McDuffie after trading Trent McDuffie. I would rather just go get better elsewhere and try to find a corner later, but I'm not upset. I don't hate delaying that pick. Just want to do that. All right.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I don't.
Sorry.
Going corner top 10 after trading McDuffie. It just, it's a weird look to me. I wouldn't hate it either. I think he's a good player. I just think, with some of the other needs they have and some of the other players that could be available, like if Bane's available, if Carnell Tate's available, it's hard for me to want to go delaying over those two. Yeah.
All right, it's time. It's time for the segment that is sweeping the nation. Nobody can get enough of this. It is the thing that is at the top of every news show every morning. Skip Bayless is waiting on the edge of his seat to talk about it live from his kitchen. It is time for Hammy's burning questions.
I'm gonna have one for you this week, Maddie.
Okay, perfect.
How does it feel to get into a Twitter war with Sam Monson?
Oh man, oh man, what a time. I said there'd be more on this. All right, so I said it. I had a long weekend. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we're back we're staying at a hotel overnight so we can be closer to an amusement park the next day. It's already been a long day. Everyone's asleep. I load up Twitter for like the first real time of the day. Like I'd opened it to respond to some DMs or notifications, but like this is the first time I clicked the timeline. And the first thing I see on my timeline is, and listen, you should go listen to, I think it's called Check the Mic with Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. You should go listen to how they explain it and their rationale. Please go listen. Don't just take my side of it, anything. Go listen to it. But the first thing I see is like, when watching Ruben Bane and David Bailey back-to-back, you really see the twitchiness and burst that Bane struggles with in David Bailey's film. He's just much better or something like that. And I was taken aback. If I wasn't already sitting down, I would have fallen over because like it didn't cross my mind that somebody would watch those two guys back to back and come away and say David Bailey is more explosive. And it was more twitchy and bursty than Ruben Bane. That didn't cross my mind. And let alone to say that Bane was bad in terms of twitch and burst, but it just didn't cross my mind. And I quote tweeted it, and I probably was very forward with what I said. Because again, long day, and I was legitimately flabbergasted. And boy, did I open the gates for the next day and a half on Twitter about that from both sides. I cannot tell you I got a perfect 50-50 split of what do you mean? Of course Bailey is versus so many people saying like, yeah, Bailey's fast, but he's not explosive. It's pretty clear. Like I got a perfect 50-50 split on people's reactions to that.
Yeah, and I honestly think the way that you do, like he's fast, he's not twitchy. You don't see this, insane get off from him. He's able to win.
Yeah.
With build-up speed, but he's not blowing off the ball. And Bane has that juice. I think Bane gets off the ball better with more juice than Bailey does.
That was to me, like, it wasn't even a question, right? Like, then this is why, like I said, I felt like I didn't feel bad because then like Steve and Sam, I think took it personally. I see how they did. Cause I definitely was like very open, like just like I was pretty blunt in my response, but I was taken aback. Yeah. And so I was just like, I was like, okay, so I thought about it and talked to some people about it, like online throughout the day. I'm like, okay, David Bailey is very, very fast, like super fast.
Yes.
But when you watch him, he's racing tackles around the edge. He's making tackles keep up with how fast he is around the edge. He's winning at 10, 11, 12 yards, and you either have Big 12 quarterbacks running backwards into him because that Texas Tech defense is great, or he's bought enough time that he can circle back around and loop up at the back of the pocket. Nothing wrong with that in college, but like that's speed. He's turning it into a foot race. He says, you can't keep up with me for as long as I can run. And that's cool. Then you watch Ruben Bane. He's getting to the outside shoulder of offensive tackles at 7 and 8 yards. And then he's beating them from that spot. So he's turning the corner a good 2, 3, 4 yards shorter than David Bailey is. And it's like, that's because he's more explosive. He's covering more ground in less steps and faster. It doesn't mean that he is a faster runner than David Bailey. He just gets off the ball faster. And I didn't think it was a question. Apparently the interwebs that are following me or seeing my tweets are very split on this, but like, yeah, it took me aback. And like even transferring it beyond just like straight get off, watch Ruben Bane put his foot in the ground and then try to run through someone's chest. And then watch David Bailey do it, who's really good at turning speed to power. I want to be clear. That's something he can do well, but there's a difference when Bane puts his foot in the ground and launches through your chest and when David Bailey does. And so I ultimately think two things happen to this. Like I think people get confused on speed versus twitch and burst. They're not the same thing, right? Speed is different than twitch and burst. Twitch and burst lead to your speed, but that's still a different thing. David Bailey's kind of not one speed, but he's a gradual speed guy. He builds up his speed to get to his top speed. There is never like another gear once he's going. It's just this gradual incline. Whereas Ruben Bane, it's, explode up. And then maybe there's a flattening line a little bit lighter, but then he can explode up again from that point. It's very different. And this is the big one for me. David Bailey looks how we think athletic rushers look. He looks like what we think an explosive player looks like.
Yes.
Ruben Bane doesn't. Ruben Bane looks like your uncle. And I think that plays some tricks on people's brain.
I think that's a great point. I really think that has something to do with it. Because he's got the long arms and he's got that length.
He wears his pants so high, so it looks like he has these super long legs. I think he's got longer torso, but it's just the way he's built. You're like, ooh, I think he's more explosive, and then he's fast. So you watch him, and he's constantly winning around the arc. And you're like, oh, that's really fast. But if you stop and count the steps or look where it is, okay, it's actually not. He's not winning. I don't want to say he's not winning quickly. I don't want to say he's not winning with speed. It's just, it's way deeper. It's just a race around a track.
Yeah. And he's either eventually beating or he's doing that spin move that probably is not going to be super successful at the NFL level if he tries that. It's again, not that he's a bad player by any means. It's just, the twitch, he's not. He doesn't have that twitch. This is not Myles Garrett. He's not on that level. He's that next turnout, which again is a very productive pass rusher in the NFL. He's just those and again, if we're making it a comp with Bane is absolutely more explosive off the ball.
Yeah, and like I said, that's only what it boiled down to me. Like I said, you should go listen to Check the Mic with those guys and see exactly what they're saying from their point of view. Maybe they have some, I just saw the social media clip. Maybe there's some visual aids that they have going for it. I don't know. You can yell at me in the comments. If and Hamilton, because he was on my side, you can yell at us in the comments and just be like, hey, here's the thing. This has nothing to do with this isn't even a Bane is better than Bailey conversation with right now. It's just Bane's more explosive. If you put them both in the stance and blow a whistle and say go 3 steps as fast and as far as you can, Bane's going farther and quicker than Bailey gets to those 3 steps. Now, after that, Bailey might start making up ground, but it's just, I don't know. So that is where we were. Thank you for bringing that up.
The comment from Mike G in the chat.
Oh, yeah. This final one here.
Yeah.
Okay. The universe will correct itself when Sam Monson is the solo for KCG Ruben Bane for Defensive Player of the Year, a la his MVP Justin Herbert vote. Listen, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess this is my only final thing on this. Boy, if you think that Ruben Bane isn't bursty or twitchy, what really do you like about him, right? And I don't mean that there's not other stuff to like. It's just I don't know what their overall thoughts are on Ruben Bane. It said the way they phrased it made it sound like they were 2 guys that they had ranked pretty similarly, and this was a big difference in them. But if you don't think Ruben Bane is bendy or twitchy or bursty at all, it feels like you're missing a big part of what other people seem to think is some of his best traits. So it's just, it was a curious tweet for me. Thank you for bringing that to the light. And yes, getting into a Twitter war with Sam Monson, formerly of PFF, after I, maybe had formerly got into multiple spats with other former PFF employees while they still work there that may or may not now play a huge role in the Carolina Panthers. That is going to do it for the KC Laboratory. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you. We will be back on Wednesday night with Craig Stout and myself. We'll see if Kent is available from the KC Draft Guide Dungeon. You can get that link in the description. Hamilton, thank you so much for joining me. We appreciate you guys for all listening. Take it easy, and we will catch you guys later this week. Jeez, what a Twitter spell.